of what could be an over-the-top trade fight, and everyday Americans could be paying for it. President Trump isn't backing down from tariffs against Canada and China, and those countries are taking aim at some U.S. products, and that's not good news for consumers. But here's what is: those Trump tax cuts. So which is going to win out this summer and in November? Let's ask market watchers Lindsey, Dan Geltrude, and Jonas Ferris. Dan, I want to start with you. Those Trump tax cuts versus the trade worries, which one do you think will resonate the most, particularly as we head into the midterms?
I think tax cuts are what's going to override the day in the end. Look, these trade wars are not real right now. They're on the horizon. We see them coming. But I still say this is all part of the president negotiating hard. We're coming from a position of strength. We got the economy at our back. Let's see what we can get done here.
We are coming from a position of strength, Lindsey, but we're also running up against some of these deadlines, right? Some of these hard deadlines that we've given, including Friday when we launched $34 billion in additional tariffs against China. They'll retaliate. So they will become real. And the question is, I know Trump supporters believe in him and they believe he is trying to do the right thing. And overwhelmingly, they tell me they're OK with paying more prices. But we've already heard this last week from Toyota saying, well, a Camry may cost you $1,800 more. The beer cans that we're drinking right now, 24 cents more. And we already know from the tariffs that have been put into place from Canadian lumber, the average price of a home has gone up $9,000 since January of last year. So when we start to get real impact on Main Street, how will that change the dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying right now that they're going to be able to withstand some of the pain and they're okay with it because they see the greater good and the end goal. But I think it is really going to start to really hit where it hurts. You're seeing numbers move right now. Soybean and wheat crops, the prices have declined by 10% in June. That hurts the farmers. They're okay with it now, but it's going to come home to roost in the fall when those crops come around.
All right. I want you guys to listen to an exchange. It's between FBN's Blake Berman and White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, and it's on what this trade battle means for everyday Americans. Roll the tape.
Is the United States winning this battle, and if so, how?
Again, the president is focused not on the short term, but on the long term, and he wants to make sure that we're doing things that help protect American workers and protect American industry, and he is going to keep pushing to make sure that we have good trade deals. We have been in trade deficits with nearly every country across the globe for years, and the president wants to ensure that that doesn't continue.
How long is the long term? Because if there's, for the folks who are actually impacted by this, and they just hear, well, we're in it for the long term. Is the long term weeks, months, years? How long is the long term?
Look, we're not setting a timetable, and there are a lot of different negotiations going on.
Jonas, your thoughts?
You know, low prices by themselves are not necessarily the greatest sign in the world. It depends how we got there. You know, if China just like ripped off every movie and sold them for 10 cents in China to Americans over the internet, that's a low price. Americans will be psyched now having to pay more. Doesn't mean it's good for our business or making movies, making TV shows. You need intellectual property protected, which does raise the prices of drugs, of movies, of everything that we consume, of iPhones. So you don't want to just be like, oh, low prices by themselves. Now, as far as the effects now, I've got a client in the steel business. They're passing 25% price increases on to people. So it is real in certain areas of the economy. The low taxes are countering that. I would argue the interest rates have not gone through 3%, which would raise mortgage rates, car loans, lease rates, et cetera, because of the threat of tariff war. So in some ways, there's an offsetting thing going on here. So consumers aren't getting the full brunt of this tariff war if it even becomes a full-blown war.
An interesting irony. We're keeping the Federal Reserve at bay, which ultimately is the ultimate killer of big booms. Dan, on that note, this week we saw manufacturing data much better than expected. Factory orders through the roof. We're looking at employment data. We'll get a new jobs report on Friday, but we're looking at employment data that has been fantastic. So we know what might happen, but what is happening gets back to your point. Between the regulatory cuts and the tax cuts and this new feeling of optimism, we're doing pretty good right now.
You're exactly right. It is about the tax cuts. It is about optimism. It is about cutting regulation. Look, Donald Trump is not wrong with the position he's taking. We have been getting ripped off. Tariffs are taxes. We're being overtaxed. He doesn't like it. He never liked it.
But people watching will say, well, then why are we leveling taxes on our own folks? At what point are we proving by raising our own tariffs? Because you just said they're a tax.
They are a tax. And remember, the tax being put in by these governments, these trades are between companies, not countries. So now you have countries putting their hands in the pockets of all these companies. Remember what the president said. Let's get rid of all tariffs. Let's make it a level playing field, and may the best win.
Yeah, that was a mic drop moment, I think, for him with respect to some of our European counterparts in Canada, right? So Lindsey, I mean, it is a difficult situation. The market's been moving sideways for the most part. We are coming up on some critical data, and it's a high stakes game that no other presidents whined about this, but none ever pushed back to this degree. I'm seeing signs that I think China wants to do something. I think they want to do some sort of a deal. And as much as we talk about our markets, their markets have been rocked big time by all of this.
Exactly. Their markets have seriously been rocked. The economy here is much stronger. We're going to come out and hear corporate earnings in a couple weeks now. And I think the biggest concern, though, with that is capital spending plans. Capital spending was up 40% year over year in the last 2 quarters on average. I want to see a continuation of that. We'll probably get more anecdotal evidence from these CEOs that they're a little bit worried about the trade wars and the discussions that are being had there. And they need to make plans for the latter half of the year. And they need clarity, and they need a timeline. That's the biggest thing here with these tariffs.
Well, Jonas, there is no timeline right now. Everyone's hoping that we get resolution sooner rather than later. But to Lindsey's point, that great manufacturing data I talked about, almost everyone said we're anxious, we're nervous, we're worried about the tariffs and the trade battle and where they go from here, despite the fact that they are doing very well.
Well, again, there was a president who tried major tariffs. It was 1930 under Hoover, but the economy was weak then. We have a strong economy that hopefully will offset a tariff war. If we were in a weak economy or a recession and you started pulling this tariff nonsense, it would be bad. There's no question about it. And I'm not saying it's good now, but if you're going to have this fight and try to fix these problems, this is probably the time to do it, even though, again, it could go very wrong.
A little bit night and day, right? 20,000 tariff items in a global recession after the stock market crash of the biggest one in history. But it's a little bit different circumstances. Guys, thank you all very much.
Very different.
Hey, while you're enjoying the